So now, where do we proceed next? We proceed, of course, to the flower, the orchid flower itself. Where do we start? The flower itself consists of petals and a center, a butterfly and an anther and column. We'll start with a column. What do we need for this? You will need wire number 22. You will need wire cutters, pliers, clay. We will need oil paint, ultramarine light or any other blue color, and white zinc. Let's start with what are we going to do? We'll make the wire first, a wire frame that will hold our flowers. We will use a pair of wire cutters for this. What size of wire do we need? Let's do it this way. Since we will make a column, which will also take some amount of wire, we will capture approximately such a segment. Now I will measure it. Probably about 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters. In my case, almost 10.5 centimeters, approximately. This will be enough. Why? How are we going to do it? To make the orchid column, to shape it well, we take a line segment. Now I will measure it. So here is about 1.5 centimeters. It is 1.5 centimeters and we bend it like this. Create a corner like this. Next, what am I doing? Then I press this corner. I make such a loop. I press it tighter. See what happened? Here is a bend. And now I postpone this segment and form it in this way. What happens? It turns out such a tail, the so-called one. Well, basically at right angles. This is the shape of the wire we will need in order to form the columns. In this case, such a segment remains. This is just a flower for the stem. How long is it in centimeters? Let's measure it now. The remainder is about 9 centimeters, a little less. 8.59 centimeters. We need such segments. Since we will have 7 flowers, we need to make such 7 segments. Let's do one more. Let's take about 10 centimeters. I measure it. I cut it off. And I do the same. In general, I make these loops by eye, but you can measure. If you do this for the first time, you should measure it approximately so that it is not short in any case. If it is long, then it can be trimmed later, this ponytail, and if it is short, then it may not be enough. Here's what happened. You can even be a little longer. No, the same. They have a 1 millimeter difference. Let's make another segment like this. How many centimeters are left? About 20 centimeters of wire. Therefore, we divide it in half. Let's see. And from them we make shapes also. I bend it. I press. Now I put it like this and form this shape. To keep such a tail, a loop. It is approximately 2 millimeters. Maybe 3 millimeters. About 3 millimeters. It will be needed to keep the column later. Everything. Next, I will make the next section myself already. The same thing will make you, and then we will begin to form the column. I'll show you how we are going to do it. So, further, we need to mix the clay. Make the color you want. Since the orchid is blue, the main color mixed into the clay will be light blue. We take a small amount of clay. Such an amount. First, what are we going to do? Since the clay is completely unpainted, if you first mix just a blue color into it, make it light blue, then after drying, it is possible that the color will turn out to be gray blue. And we need it to be with a pure shade, pure blue. What do we need to do for this? To remove pure transparency, since cold porcelain can become transparent after complete drying, we need to remove the slight transparency. We will do this with zinc oxide. Be careful, don't be confused with titanium white. There is zinc white and there is also titanium white. Zinc white leaves the transparency of the clay, while titanium white completely removes the transparency of the clay. That is, they make the flowers mate. Only zinc white. Take a small amount of clay and add a small amount of white paint. Here, I smeared a couple of times and that's enough. That's all. Now we remove the paint and mix it well. First we need the white color. We knead well. And then we will add blue shades. That is, we need a pure blue color without gray tones so that the petals are beautiful after drying. So now, take a piece of blue paint and add a very small amount. Straight like this. Smeared slightly. Don't overdo it. We need to make the color light blue. That is, we do not need a saturated shade, we need a light shade. Then we still need to tint a little. Will be tinted on top. This one even turned out to be rich. Let's see. If after all it turned out to be too saturated, then it is better to add a little unpainted clay. Well, or add whitewash to the clay, a drop. So, we need. In principle, the color is normal. Look, this is such a light blue shade. This is the color. So we will need it to create a flower. The middle and the petals themselves. After mixing the paint into the clay, we can safely start creating the column. So we take a small amount. We need a little more. Let's see. I'm showing you a way to create a column using a veiner. It is with the help of a veiner. Then I show the way how to do it without a veiner. If it so happens that you have no veiner. Look, such a small pea, about 1 centimeter. What do we do? Let's prepare the glue. Now I make the sausage. I first push the clay into the deepest place with gentle movements. Right here, deepening the veiner. I do it well. With gentle movements so that the clay lies evenly there, to form the desired column pattern. And then we make the shape of the small sausage with our hands. Now we take glue and a wire blank. We dip the blank into the glue so that it is completely emitted. Glued with glue, dipped in glue. And what are we doing? We insert like this, starting from about 3 millimeters. That is, we do not insert at the very beginning, but where the head will be, roughly speaking. Column head. Press a little and grab it with your fingers gently. So, fix the wire. We carefully pruning the wire while everything dry. Here's what happened. So, now we need to put it in the refrigerator, best of all in the freezer, for about 10-15 minutes. We leave it in the freezer and I will show you what we will do next. Let's see what happened after freezing. The veiner, as far as you remember, put it in the freezer to freeze the clay. We carefully take it out of the veiner. Here we have such a blank. You can keep it from half an hour to an hour in the refrigerator in the freezer. Look how well the clay freezes. 0.5 hour is enough, and it is already frozen and so dense. Now you need to leave it to dry. First, the clay will now begin to thaw. It becomes wet. Then it will dry out slightly. We leave it somewhere for 20 minutes. And then we will cut off all the irregularities and form the desired column shape. And now we leave, and the path will dry out and defrost a little. Look at it after the column and beak have dried out a little, after you have taken it out of the freezer. I crush this little tail, which is next to the beak, near the beak. Let's form the desired shape a little. Now we cut off all unnecessary details, irregularities. We clean carefully. Look, we remove the excess here so that the wire remains. The wire is long, but we need it about 2 mm in size. Then we will cut off the extra tail when we fasten it. What else can we do? We make such an incision. Deepen with scissors. In the triangle form. Look what happened. It turned out to be such a beak. We gently tamp this excess clay inward so that there is a pronounced beak. Here, the beak turns out. See what comes out. This is the shape of the beak or column. What is the correct name for an orchid? And we will collect everything in place in the future. To collect beak, column, and butterfly. And now I will show you how you can make an orchid column without the help of a veiner, just with the help of hands, an eraser, and of course, scissors and clay. Let's get started. We take a small amount of clay. Let's try. If there is too much, it is better to remove it later. We knead well so that the clay becomes pliable soft, especially if it is stained. Knead it well so that it becomes elastic and convenient to use. So, we mixed. Now look at what I'm doing. I'm making a ball. I got the ball size. In principle, this is not particularly important. Well, I have somewhere around 8 millimeters. To be clear, look what we do. We make such an elongated drop. Here is a narrowed edge, but here it is wider. And now we will glue this droplet. Look how we do it. We take glue, lower the workpiece there. Not completely, but so that a little was smeared with glue. There must be glue. So, now we hold it with our finger, or we can put it on the palm of your hand. And like this, insert the wire into the clay carefully. By this place, where the clamp goes, the loop is formed. We fix this where the white base of the clay is. And so a little immersed in clay. Next, we pinch here so that the wire is not visible. And gently form with our fingers like this. See what happens. Formed and rolled this wire. Form just such a figure. Now what do we do next? So, look. We need to form, as it were, the head of the orchid. The beak. How will we form it? We narrow down to the bottom and we leave such a thickening here. So, look. Stretch the clay down gently to thin it, but so that the wire does not shine through, does not peep out. Look what happens. This is the form. Shape it all with your fingers gently. We will cut off everything superfluous. It is necessary that the tail of the clay wire remains, because we will use it later. The little tail remained a couple of millimeters. So, and what are we going to do with this head now? I'll take a smaller stack. You can use a larger stack, just smaller, thinner. It is more convenient for me to use. Look what we do. We make deepening of the cups. And now we will pull it out here a little. I make it like a beak. You can use scissors. The orchid has a sharp beak. Cut out. We make such an incision with scissors. And this clay, which has crawled out, we again form it inside. We make a small indentation. It turns out that we have such a peculiar head, like a bird. Look. Gently lower the beak down. We look. In general, of course, you need to look so that the size is not too large. Miniature. And we can also make small such indentations. Eyes. Of course not eyes naturally. This is not a real bird head, but they're just very similar to each other. It looks like a bird in an orchid. This is the beak, as if the eyes of an orchid, formed with pressing movements. Here's what happened. Look. This is the shape of the beak. Columns. I hope everything was clear and visible. And now let's compare. It probably turned out to be a little larger than that of the veiner. There is a difference. It is a little larger, so this is an experimental option. You can do a little less. If you do it only with your hands, of course, make sure that the dimensions correspond to the size of the butterfly itself. We will also make a butterfly. The main thing is that they are not too different. Let's say a beak is too small, a column is too small, and a flower in the middle is too large. Isn't it? They are butterflies. Therefore, it is necessary to comply with dimensions. I'll show you how we are going to do it all. Shape it. Look. Here's what happened. This is with a veneer and this is with the hands. Stack. In principle, it seems familiar. Just got bigger. Then do a little less. Let's do a little less. Let's try.